So I'd like to call this meeting to order. Hold on a moment. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. The Wilfrid Laurier University Students Union acknowledges that we operate on the traditional territory of the Neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. We commit to operating our organization in a manner that does not conflict with the traditional values of the people on whose lands that we operate on. We have one temporary regret from Director Spitzeri. He might be attending at around 6 p.m. I will now move on to conflicts of interest. Do any directors have any conflicts of interest that they would like to declare? As I see none, we will now move into the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion that the Board of Directors adopt the agenda as presented?
I'd like to amend the motion for the GP2A discussion. To be a decision discussion and extend the time on it.
What do you propose the decision discussion to be?
It should be listed in the
I understand. Or what's the time that you're looking for?
probably longer than 5-10 minutes.
So to extend the direct inspection committee reports to 10 minutes from 5 minutes. Does that work with other directors? Just a simple head nod. Yeah. All right. So can I get a motion that the Board of Directors adopt the agenda as presented with the modification of increasing the direct inspection committee reports GP2A to a decision and to increase the time to 10 minutes. Can I get a motion on the table? Vice Chair, seconded by Director Corey. We will now move into voting. Any opposition? Any abstention? All those in favor? Motion passes with unanimous consent. 0-0. We will now move into the approval of minutes. Does anybody have any questions about the minutes that were presented to the board? Comments, concerns? Cool. I'd like to just, for the record, to provide some feedback to the board secretary in public. I believe that the minutes are a great improvement from the minutes that we've had last year. They are succinct, to the point, and are actually very precise, which I love. So thank you to the board chair for the work that they are, board chair. Thank you to the board secretary for the hard work that they are doing. So can I get a motion that the Board of Directors approve the minutes from the May 25th, June 20th, July 17th, and August 23rd board meetings? We'll go Director Russo and we will now move into voting. Any opposition? Any abstention? All those in favor? The motion passes with unanimous consent. We will now move on to comments from the chair of the board and CGO. Welcome, directors and president, and our wonderful director of policy research and advocacy to this meeting. We appreciate your time and commitment to come here. I do have a couple comments. The first one is in relations to emails. Directors, please answer your emails in a timely fashion. Please don't make me send a second, third, or fourth follow-up. In order for our board to operate efficiently, it is imperative that directors fill part of their job responsibilities, and that is to answer the communications in a timely fashion. So please answer your emails. It is extremely important, as we all have very busy lives, and our committees need to be struck in an orderly and timely fashion. Otherwise, I really appreciate you all for showing up here. Can't wait for our discussion for the other matters later in the board, later in the meeting. We'll now move over to comments from the president. Or no, does anybody have any questions, comments, and concerns regarding my? Go ahead, Director Gordon.
Two, I'm assuming based off the fact that they've been emailed out, the board secretary's been hired.
Yes.
And has there been anything on the government's operations retreat, or is that kind of too difficult now that you're starting classes?
These are ongoing discussions between me and the president. We hope to have something for directors in terms of maybe like a half day. Maybe if directors are really interested in having a governance operations retreat, maybe discuss if it's operationally feasible to have it on the weekend, preferably maybe like a early Saturday type of function. But we can have a discussion about that at the end of the board meeting if you'd like. Depending on what sort of availabilities and interests that you have regarding this matter. Does that answer your question? Any further questions to the chair and CGM? Cool. As I see none, we will now move on to the president's comments.
Just checking, did we approve the consent agenda?
No.
We did, no. We did. Yeah, we did.
No, I think we did the other minutes.
And
Oh, okay.
regulations that happens.
Good call. Thank you. We did have a motion. I do recall we did have a motion on the table to approve the consent agenda because we did the.
Regular agenda.
The regular
consent agenda.
Oh, yes. What's the governance, advice on?
You can just do that.
Okay, can I get a motion that the board of directors adopt the agenda as presented and then amended? Director Phillips
Agenda.
and the Director Baldwin. No, I talked about just regular agenda.
You've already approved that.
So you need to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, yes.
Pending any requests for changes.
Okay, yeah, all right, so can I get a motion that the board of directors adopt the consent agenda as amended? Right? Director Phillips, Director Baldwin, let's call it to a vote. Any opposition? No abstentions? All those in favor? Approved by unanimous consent. Sorry about that. Good point. Thank you, President, for keeping me on my toes.
My turn now? Okay.
Go ahead.
So Bill's sick, so I have my updates and his, so quite a few things. So first, a week was a big success. So just kind of like getting organized after that. So all the departments are full steam ahead for the school year. So programming and services on both campuses are kind of just recovering from a week and knocking out the years and working with their various coordinators for GSR, which is Government Stakeholder Relations. It's currently Consent Awareness Week. So we're working very closely with Consent of Golden on different events this week to kind of create awareness for gender and sexual based violence. Clubs and associations, club events are underway. The Get Ball Fair, where both of them are huge successes. And then financial volunteer operations, hiring for volunteers is still open. It's going great. We currently have 200 volunteer applications, 50 of those being Brantford, which is really great. And hiring is still open for 3 more days. And typically we get most of the applications in the last 24 hours. So the fact we're already at 200 is great. WILS and the Muslim Student Association, they've come up with a compromise on halal food on the menu, and Phil's going to provide a written update at the next board meeting. We're also working with to get the MSA a more consistent prayer space. So they did a prayer last Friday in the turret, but that's not sustainable long term. So we're working with them to come up with somewhere they can do that more consistently. The air handling situation is currently on pause due to financial reasons, and Phil can also provide more updates on that at the next meeting. Phil and myself are working with C Study and their leadership to come up with a vision for student support. So they're kind of looking at revamping their program and the way they serve students. So we're a big player in that. We just met with the vice president, academic and provost, and we have consistent meetings set up once a month to talk about student priorities with her. And she seems very eager to work with us, which is really great. we put out a contract, we put out a contract to a candidate for the acting director of marketing, which is really exciting. Still waiting for that to be signed, so we'll be able to provide more updates at the next meeting if it goes through. We're working with athletics on the facilities referendum question. There'll be a lot more to come on that. Super high level, it's for athletics to obtain funding for the Seagram project, and then hoping to have a referendum question in the election in January. So very relevant to this group, obviously. And then finally, Phil's gonna provide an update on the Brantford hospitality situation at the next board meeting. It's rocky, so he'll be able to talk more about that next meeting. I know that was a lot, so I can take any questions if there are any.
All right, let's open up the floor for questions, comments, concerns to the president, CEO and COO, I guess, in a way. Director Corr.
I just kind of on a personal note, it's great to see you during the week. It was definitely noticed on icebreakers and just kind of everyone who were there. And it was kind of just from discussions among people on the Brantford campus. You're off with your good start this year and it doesn't go unnoticed. It's great to see.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? I have a couple questions, or actually, maybe, yeah, just a couple questions. Any further discussions on the SAAA?
A little bit, so we had a meeting with Heidi and Pam, who works in HR. She reports directly to Deb. So we had a meeting with them and it went really well. So we were essentially talking about, there's some roles in student affairs that there's been some complications where they report up to people in student affairs. But the office of the president is looking for like a dotted line to their office. And it's been kind of grinding Ivan Joseph's gears. But we had a really productive conversation with them about why those people belong in student affairs. And that was really great. But other than that, was there any anything specific you want to update on? Or-
Yes, the first question, or the question is like, what's the timeline looking like for more permanent version of the agreement? I know that the agreement that the previous board has come to was kind of like a 1 year plus or 1 year plus bonus type arrangement, and we're looking to make that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that all the parties, like us and the university, are like pretty content with the agreement that was produced last year. So I mean, I can definitely get more context from Phil, but I think we would be looking to keep it pretty similar with like minor changes. Because even like the start of this year has been like the summer and the start of this year have been very strong between us and student affairs. I think everyone's pretty content with the agreement, so I don't think there would be many changes to renew it. Just speaking from our side, I think that's the way we're looking.
Cool. Second question, moving on, about the physical infrastructure, can we get a briefing, comprehensive briefing note on the infrastructure challenges, if you can call them that, on the Brantford and the Waterloo campus for One Market and, you know, our air handling units?
Yeah.
Cool. Dr. Corr?
Just something I saw in your thing, Ian. Is there anything with the Blue Ribbon panel that there's worth knowing about right now, or?
Just that it's expected maybe later this month or early October, so don't have a definitive timeline yet. I've heard that the report's been submitted by the panel to the government. That's not confirmed. And we don't know what the timeline beyond that is.
I can confirm it. It's we had the chair of the Blue Ribbon panel actually come speak to the Board of Governors. So yeah, it has been submitted to the government. It's just a period of time until it becomes public. Another question, a comment. Thank you for your wonderful execution of O Week. I can speak on behalf of the many Brantford volunteers that I do know, icebreakers and otherwise, that definitely tell that your presence on campus was noticed. So market change from previous years. So good on that. The activities were great. I appreciate your cooperation with helping us run the Waterloo and the Brantford side of the Get Involved Fair. So thank you for that. I actually can tell that our efforts have been more fruitful than previous years. So kudos to you. Yeah, I think that's it. Any further questions for President and CEO? Cool. As I see none, we will now move into the next portion. On to the Ownership Linkage Committee bi-monthly update. So if directors have read the briefing note, they'll see that we are still obviously planning some of the events that we will be doing for students in the upcoming fall semester. The ownership linkage or our Get Involved Fair success has, or our ownership linkage efforts within the Get Involved Fair were successful, which is great. We've had a lot of turnout and engagement with directors and with SU executives in terms of governance. I was finally given the opportunity to reach out to the president of the LMA. I have now forwarded the response from the president of the LMA to the chairs of the co-chairs of the committee, which is the vice chair and Director Corey. And we will be soon meeting as a committee again to discuss the next moves, because I cannot make any unilateral decisions. It's just simply not my role. So otherwise, we hope to do a combined board social, pair that with trivia night on the Brantford campus. This was successful last year. We hope to maybe be able to do that in Waterloo as well, where directors will kind of have a presence during the trivia night. It's be popular, and we get to feed some students with our next budget. So hopefully directors will be interested when that comes out of committee, and we'll be able to organize some type of coordinated events with our SU operations. So that summarizes my ownership linkage committee updates. We will now move into the direct inspection committee reports. We will first approve EL2A. Does anybody have any questions or concerns regarding the EL2A direct inspection committee report? Just so you know, since this is the first batch of direct inspection committee reports, you as directors are empowered to disagree with findings from any direct inspection committee report, even if it comes with a suggestion or it doesn't come with a suggestion. So if you feel that you have any amendments that you'd like to make to the policy, you are empowered to do that. So if you feel that you have any amendments that you'd like to bring to EL2A, this is your time to discuss it. Any discussion on the EL2A direct inspection committee report? Okay, as I see none, we will now move, can I get a motion to approve the EL2A report as presented? Director Ellis and Director Hamilton, yes, Director Hamilton. We'll now, any discussions or comments on the matter? Okay, as I see none, we'll now move into voting. Any opposition? Any abstention? All those in favor? The motion passes with unanimous consent. We'll now move into GP2A. And let me just pull it up real quick. Okay, this was presented, this part, or this will be presented by the chair of the direct inspection committee, Director Corey. You have the floor.
I'll go into it. It's been about a month or so since we've met, so I may be scratching on my details, but it should all be in kind of production. Right? Basically, all the additions are demonstrated via underline or highlight. Subtractions are noted via strike through. And for subsection 7, that's the decision part. have other ones. It's straightforward.
So, the main, I guess, contentious piece was, subsection 7. Which reads as be acceptable to all members by having no less than 2 regularly scheduled board meetings per year in each city that the student union operates. The way that it has been historically, interpreted by previous chairs and CGOs was that directors have full board meetings and that all directors from a city attend a board meeting in one city at one time, as demonstrated today.
No, the practice has been that, even prior to the pandemic, we had a video conference link in both boardrooms.
Oh.
So there's always been, attendance in Brantford and Waterloo and connected via video conferencing. The students' union was actually fairly ahead of things when it came to video conferencing. The university used to use our board room for multi-campus meetings because we had that hooked up. So there, sometimes people would travel to various campuses, but we, at least since I've been here, we've always had the video conference link between the 2 boardrooms, so that the meetings can be simultaneously held in Brantford and in Waterloo at the same time.
Hasn't it also been like, been directors also have a meeting like once a semester?
They choose, like, it was primarily. There was primarily a feeling amongst the Waterloo-based directors that they make an effort to go to Brantford, because usually the boards have only had 2 Brantford directors, the minimum amount, so. There was a concerted effort in order to, for goodwill amongst the board, that the Waterloo crowd would go down to Brantford for a meeting. There'd be an opportunity for Brantford directors to come up. But because of the technology that we have, the meetings have been simultaneously run on a multi-campus model. That was part of the multi-campus emphasis. And obviously the COVID and the enhancement of the technology has just made us able to do that easier than before.
Right. We'll leave that up for discussion now. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, just for explanation. Our discussion in the committee meeting, for those who are not there. The contentious issue with subsection number 7 was we want to bring. That discussion of having it be mandatory in policy. Meetings in both campuses or through the utilization of Zoom, which we've been using. All this time, to not make it mandatory. However, if we want to encourage it, be a different discussion later on. We were unsure of the exact definition and wanted to bring that in front of the board. So if any of you guys have thoughts, questions, concerns about it.
Yeah.
That's why we brought it forward.
The main reason why the I guess the difference was in that by making it mandatory, at least directors are by policy required to make an effort, whereas by leaving it vague, future boards may elect not to. And as a multi-campus student union and soon to be maybe even more than 2 campuses at once, it is important, at least from my perspective, that directors make an effort to understand the students where they are. And you can really only get that by understanding where students actually live and study, which is why I personally have been more interested in having at least 1 board meeting where directors from each campus go to each campus, so that like hopefully at some point during the fall and winter semester, Waterloo directors come down to Brantford when feasible and ahead of time, plan so that you understand where our students go to school and what issues do they face from a physical perspective. Because a lot of Waterloo directors don't, or historically haven't. But
my opinion on that is that I'm not sure that going to Brantford to sit in a boardroom is indicative of understanding the physical like nature of Brantford as a whole. So obviously, there are other avenues to explore besides offering meetings in which we are given a better understanding of that Brantford campus outside of just the boardroom.
What, okay, possible like campus tour to our directors, have our directors be shown around Brantford and how it's supposed to be concerned about.
Yeah. And from my understanding, when meetings would happen on the Brantford campus, a campus tour would be part of the experience. So that you would like actually see the place, have dinner, go to the board meeting and then call it a night. Which was kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of keep this policy at least understood the way that I'm proposing, so that like directors kind of have a field trip, have an understanding. Obviously, your transportation is covered. As we have a budget, a line in the budget for that specific director of transportation. So come down, show you around, have dinner, and then to the effective board meeting kind of all at once.
Two thoughts of that, like I know a lot of directors are quite busy with other stuff going on as well. It might be difficult to find a specific meeting that all directors can attend for, I'm assuming, 2 or 3 hours, quite a while. Is it possible, or would you think they're not necessarily have like one necessary mandatory day everyone goes, but having a mandatory one day and then go?
That's actually a very interesting perspective. I think that is a really good addition to this. So if you want to propose that as an amendment, or would you give this or propose that as an amendment? So how would we?
There's not a motion on the floor yet.
Okay.
You're still
So-
processing the report. So after each item of the report is reviewed, you would then have a motion to make certain changes to GP 2A. So then the motion would be either accept the report and make the following changes, or like the last one, we just accepted the report. So
So
it makes sense to wait until
just
and review the full report.
cool, just informally, do we want to continue the discussion, or does somebody want to propose a motion and then we can continue the discussions? Go ahead.
It's questionable at all.
Yeah.
I just was curious, just before obviously like comment from Director Phillips. How would it have been decided like which days and which meetings we would have gone? Would it been just like a vote?
So this would have been like a vote and a discussion as a board where. Board would have.
Very informal, just
Yeah, it's not like a mandatory the second meeting of November, it's not like that.
Yeah.
It's amongst directors that make an effort to do
I
that.
think it might be a good idea as well to choose a day where it's mandatory and makes just kind of more emphasis to go and make sure everyone's able to go and actually be there and experience it.
Cool.
So yeah, I think it's very good.
So does somebody want to put a motion on the table?
I just wait until you review the entire report before you do a motion, that way you can, then you're not having to amend. the
Yes,
motion if you go.
so let's, so does anybody have any questions or concerns with any of the other amendments that have been made to the policy, highlighted in yellow or struck in through strike through? Let's,
Yeah, so the first edit, under clear distinction of board and chief executive roles, the proposed change is to operations. I recommend not accepting that change, just because the board's relationship is with the president and CEO exclusively, so that would just create a bit of policy confusion.
Yep.
In comparison to BMD one.
yeah, I agree, so I would probably table on the amendments to not conduct that change. So let's change number 1. The second one, which is the board will not use expertise of individual board members to substitute judgment of the board. Such expertise may only be used to enhance the board's understanding of a particular topic. Does anybody have a conflict with that amendment? And then the strike through of B, which is the board will only use the expertise of individuals. Is that, nobody have any qualms with that? Okay, any issues with the strike through of the board's values? Like the values and perspectives of ownership?
That's section 2.
and yeah, for subsection 2. Subsection 5 monitors the board's process and performance at every meeting. And change up to at least once every 3 months. Does anybody have any qualms with that? Okay, allow no officer individual. The strike through to be an excuse for not and switch that to deter from. Dr. Corey?
Just quickly, one thing I'm noticing now is the straight through on or is a mistake. That's probably just word striking through what it shouldn't have.
Okay, do
So
you
it
wish,
should read allow no officer, individual or committee of the board to hinder or deter from fulfilling group obligations.
okay, so we'll add that on the amendment. And then the last edit, which was to update the rules of order to the 12th edition from the 11th. Okay, cool. We'll now gonna have somebody to put a motion on the table to accept the vice chair and then Director Slump, sorry. Okay, all right, we'll now kind of move on to the discussion. Does anybody have any amendments? Director, before you had any?
For what is, you haven't stated what the motion is.
To adopt the changes from GP2A.
So then you may just want to list them just for clarity,
Okay.
because there's differences with the report submitted.
Okay, so can I get a motion on the table to adopt the changes in GP2A specifically? Not amending the chief executive edit.
So I would just make a motion to amend and then do 1A, 1B,
Okay,
to, that way you're making a motion proactively for the things that are being changed. You don't need to worry about the things that aren't making change that are proposed.
okay, so can I get a motion on the table that the board accept the GP2A subsection 1, 2, 5, 6, and 10 as presented with the amendments that, and then the amendments will follow.
So those are the amendments that you're motioning.
Yeah, and then the
So what amendments are you referencing?
7, that one will still need to be amended.
So I mean, it might make sense then to have 3 motions, 1 motion, adopt the report as presented, a motion to make the recommended changes to the numbers that you just listed. Deal with those, and then we can return to item 7.
Okay.
And figure out what you're gonna do there.
Perfect. So let's do the first one, which is the adopt the.
So you have a motion on the table already to adopt the changes for the number, so finish that one, then do a motion to
Yes.
accept the report. And then we can proceed to stuff.
Okay, so I have the motion on the table. Director Ellis and Director Kohler will now move into voting. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, any opposition? Any abstentions? All those in favor? All right, that motion passes with unanimous consent. Now we move on to the amendments of GP2A, right?
So you need a motion to accept the report.
Okay, yes. So can I get a motion to accept the report as presented, Vice Chair and then Director Baldinelli? Any questions or concerns? We'll now move into voting. Any opposition? Sessions? All those in favor? Motion passes with unanimous consent. We'll now move into the amendments. Right?
You know, you should address number 7.
And now we want to address number 7. So. Director Phillips, would you like to propose your amendment to subsection 7? Yes. Okay.
I like the motion to amend section 7, that all of one of the directors attend a meeting at Brantford campus of their choosing once a semester.
And then Brantford campus.
And Brantford and City Brantford campus as well.
Okay. Do I get a second on our motion? All right. Is that a second? You can, but we need to first second the motion and then discuss the motion. Then discuss the, so do I have a seconder, Director L? By the way, the seconding doesn't mean that you agree with it, it's just that you're moving it, allowing it to be moved further. Director Ellis, okay, so discussion on the amendment.
So, sorry, what is the wording we're going for right now?
Yeah, I'm not.
Because that's what just got said is the disaster.
So don't forget that what the motion that we are presenting is going to be policy as written. So would you be amenable to be accessible to all members by having campus? Director Mull?
Yeah, I'm gonna propose a fairly simple amendment to 7 that maybe addresses what you're getting at, keeping in mind that the risk of policy is always getting too overly prescriptive. Essentially, we're wanting to set kind of like a low bar for what you want to happen, and then you can utilize things like the ownership linkage committee to do the more specific stuff.
Okay.
So I recommend simply amending it to say for 7, be accessible to all members by attending no less than 2 regularly scheduled board meetings per year in each city that the students' union operates. Leave it at that, and then it's up to each group and board to figure out what that looks like practically speaking. Maybe it's directors are going on their own, maybe you're going as a group, but you don't want to set something in policy that the next board doesn't work for them and then they automatically have to change. And this way, I think you at least get the sentiment of the hope, which is having some movement back and forth. And then each year, depending on what makes sense, can figure out what the practicalities of that look like.
What's the specific, like, what are we specifically changing?
That instead of holding meetings, you're attending meetings on each campus,
Yes.
because as we operate now, we're basically exceeding this policy directive. We're holding meetings on both campuses,
Yes.
every meeting theoretically, not so much this one because no one's in Brantford, but the idea with having both boardrooms available is not only for directors, but also for students, so that if you want to attend this meeting in person, like people used to do, or like some people are doing for this meeting, you would be able to do that regardless of where you're situated by attending the office, seeing where the office is, attending the meeting. So the issue seems to be more about board members attending the various campuses, so this may solve that problem of getting too into the weeds.
Do we have to,
We just mark it as leaving, you're still off orange, you're good.
okay, cool. Thank you very much.
He's actually.
Take care.
You use one.
Thank you for attending. All right, so. All right, so can I get a motion on the table that policies subsection 7. I guess be amended by having,
Strike having attend.
yeah, strike having add attend to the policy. Director Russo, seconded by Vice Chair. Any further discussion on the matter? Okay, as I see none, we can now move into voting. Any opposition? Any abstentions? All those in favor? Motion passes 0-0 to 8. Okay, that. Yeah, and now we're done with all the motions in relation to the thing. We will now talk about the fall semester meeting schedule. Unfortunately, the governance coordinator and I have not gotten responses from every single director to my knowledge. Which means that we haven't been able to come up with a comprehensive day that works for all directors. Which is difficult as a chair, as we have business to conduct. The best solution that we have is Wednesday at 6, which doesn't work with some directors, and Mondays at 6. Which would be basically Mondays starting. You know, not 2 weeks, because we need to hold the election. So does any director have any problems with Mondays starting next week, every 2 weeks after that? Attending meetings at 6 p.m. on a consistent basis without issue.
I can't do next week. But I'm taking my job, so I'll be able to do it like later on.
Great. Question. So next week we will be holding the election.
We can do it Wednesday. We can do Wednesday.
Wednesday, 6 p.m.
So yeah.
I have to class like 6 o'clock.
I think if we're gonna start, we should start consistently, what do we do next week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do Mondays.
But the problem is that like we need to hold an election, like, and then onboard directors, like that's a big priority. At the moment, so I don't have the luxury of time, so we do need to find another meeting in September to hold the election. Tuesdays at 6 p.m. or just next Tuesday and then 2 weeks after that, every Monday.
I mean, there's not. A week is not gonna make a world of difference in holding the election. If you were to start on a 2-week cycle from today. Holding the next meeting on the 2nd, you would conveniently skip over reading week and avoid that.
But the problem is that, like, we would now be moving into a whole, like, we'd be missing, I guess, even more time.
You've got quorum as per the constitution, so it doesn't,
Okay.
from a scheduling standpoint, if you know that Mondays at 6 p.m. work and you can start a 2-week cycle. For now, we've lost one meeting in September, but we don't have, we can make up those items. We don't have anything on the agenda that couldn't wait until October 7th.
Hold on, would we be able to hold a meeting next week just to run the election?
That's up to all of you.
Like, I find it really imperative that we get like. The directors elected, they submitted their nomination packages and like yesterday, as of yesterday, and like. I would ideally like to run an election and then have a next full board meeting, give them some time to read a package and then understand what our role is, and then maybe we can run some sort of. So can we
Should I
just
make that the election next week and then the week
after we have, well, on the
So,
second,
2 weeks from now.
yeah, and then 2 weeks from now, run a full board meeting.
Mondays.
And then Mondays at 6 p.m.
So if Monday doesn't work next week, would Tuesdays or Thursdays
Yeah.
work for anybody?
Just to run. an
Just for
election.
like next.
What
week.
time?
How long would the meeting be?
Yeah.
Would it just be the election?
No, I don't think we need. Yeah, we can, we wouldn't need operations support really, just other than running the live stream to.
Yeah, it's dedicated.
Exactly, so like,
We do.
because then the meeting after is gonna be extremely long.
So we shouldn't do it on the same night. Like we should have just election and then the next week.
Exactly,
Yes.
because,
So that it can be a little bit later for election then.
yes,
So we're working till 7, so like we can do it like 7:30, 8.
okay, so.
How long would that take?
An election would probably last, maybe if the 7 candidates, about an hour and a half. Concern,
It
like,
depends, you'll have to figure out, it's on the agenda there,
Yes.
but you'll have to figure out what you are wanting. We did the
Senate election.
the Senate election in the summer, so you could choose to that format or you could do something
Yeah.
different, so that process will dictate how long it is.
Yes, so, what if we did like. Tuesday of next week, this Tuesday of next week at 6 p.m. work.
I thought that's sad.
I work until 7.
I work, okay, so, okay, Wednesday, no.
We don't.
Thursday?
Yeah,
Do the Monday later.
Well, can I just show?
Monday, 7.
Do you know Monday?
Uh,
To start at 7, I'll show 15 minutes late.
Yes,
I'll just take a little bit more.
okay, that works, so can we do next Monday at 7? Just for the election?
Yes.
And then the week after, the fifth.
Then we run,
So
sit in 6. Okay. The next Monday at 7 o'clock.
What if it is Sunday?
Oh, please,
Please no.
please no. So, the election will now be set at 7 o'clock next Monday. Just to let you know that I do intend to, bring the, or come on campus. Considering the majority of our candidates are from Waterloo, so it'll be easier logistically to run the election in person.
How
And
many candidates are?
7, from Brantford, to my knowledge, it's 2. But I can figure out their logistics, that's not a problem.
Who's asking the questions over here?
Hmm?
Like, are we asking the questions?
We will be discussing that very shortly. We'll be discussing that very shortly. So can I get a motion on the table that the board of directors meet Sorry, let me pull up the calendar again. On Monday, Monday the 25th at 7 o'clock to run call it a special meeting to run the election. And then, October the 2nd at 6 p.m., October the 16th at 6 p.m. October the 30th at 6 p.m. November the 13th at 6 p.m. November the 27th at 6 p.m. December the 11th.
Can we simplify that a little and just say, starting Monday, October 2nd at 6 p.m., have a recurring meeting every 2 weeks?
Okay, yeah,
Concluding December 11th.
concluding December 11th. Director Ellis and Director Baldwin. Do we have any issues with that from the operating side? Cool, great. We'll now move into to voting. All those in opposition? Abstention? Favor? All right, the motion passes 0-0 to 8. We will now move on to the informal self-monitoring reports. So I figured the best way moving forward is to actually do the self-monitoring reports rather than do them all by yourself and then expect you to do that. Historically, that's been a challenge for directors. So my suggestion is to create a wonderful governance coordinator. Orlin has created like a SharePoint or like an MS Teams form that you could just answer a couple questions and then a simple comment box. Give some feedback for me as to how I could do a better job as chair, but then also some feedback on how the meeting was run, any complaints, concerns, etc. So I do need to get board approval for that. If you guys are interested, mind you, we are required by policy to have these informal self-monitoring reports. I just figured this would be the easiest and simplest way to do that. A form that doesn't take more than 5 minutes. Like at most. Director Mo.
No, Haley, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that for your board manuals, if you don't have a physical board manual yet, I have them for those of you who still need them, but the board manuals have all that in the document already.
The reason why is that by having it centralized and then having it in an electric format when we come to do our boards.
So the informal ones are just built into the manual to
Yes.
prompt directors to be thinking about following policy. They're not intended to be collected, but more the ability for directors to jot down notes as they're going to meetings, so that when we do the board evaluation at the next meeting, you can pull out your manual and see the notes that you have made, or whether you've done that digitally or whatever. There's not really any need to collect them. It's
It
more,
doesn't even need to be open to me, like it could just be stored by our governance coordinator. That's the,
I mean, there's nothing that is requiring you all to do that. The idea of having the self-monitoring was solely because we found that the board and chair evaluations, it was like people just showed up and did them without having thought about it prior. So we built in these post-meeting boxes into the board manual to kind of prompt you to be like, after the meeting, jot down a couple things about how you think it went, so that you would have those points of reference when it comes to the actual board evaluations, but it's not something that you're required to be doing. It's more part of the helping you so that you're better prepared when you're asked to do the board evaluations, which we'll be doing October 2nd.
understood, thank you. Further comments? Does anybody have any, like, would you want something like a standardized set of questions that you could?
Yeah, what would the questions be, just like,
I don't actually know Orlin, Director Mull, do you know what Orlin?
Well, I mean, if you have your board manuals, so you take a look at here, there's an evaluation worksheet, so there are prompts in this document that give you kind of the component of the meeting, prompts you to look at policy to say what you're supposed to be doing, and then opportunity just to make notes. Did we do that? Did we do the things that were required to be doing? Did we review, minutes? Did we do the things that we were supposed to be doing? So this, it depends on what you're wanting to do, because there's a bit of this, it's like we're reinventing the wheel a little bit, and that the resource exists already. If it's something that's helpful for directors to use, it's there to be used either in a physical copy or a digital copy. Ultimately, just comes down to, do you want your board evaluations to be helpful and help with your process? Because all of this is predicated, it's not something, it's not a big work project, it's meant to help make the board evaluations better, so that the board itself can feel like it's improving and doing things better as the year goes out. All this hinges on whether or not people are invested in that work. So it's really like up to each director to figure out what process, and if there's a different process, that's fine, but it's a matter of, I don't know that there's capacity for the governance coordinator to be duplicating something that we already have available. Okay. Should directors want to take advantage of it.
Right. Okay, yeah, I understand. Okay, so I will trust that directors will do their reflections on their own, but be well prepared for our board evaluations. Unfortunately, in my experience in previous years, they've been less than. They weren't as useful as they can be, but they really are a critical part of our governance. So we need to make sure that directors are noting down ideas and thoughts. And obviously, if you have any questions, concerns, or issues, feedback that you'd like to share with me, please do that. We will now go on to the director nomination update. There have been 7 nominations submitted and verified by your governance team. And we will now make a decision as to how the election will be run. I have a structure that I would like to propose that is reasonable and, in my perspective, the most democratic approach. What I suggest that we do is give each nominee 4 minutes or 5 minutes, maybe that's more fair, to kind of pitch themselves to the board, their ideas, what they'd like to bring, what they bring to the table, figuratively speaking. And then have another maybe 30-minute Q&A in which directors can ask all nominees 1 or 2 questions that they will all answer to in a random order. Sometimes it was alphabetized and then backwards, for example, to not give any nominees an advantage in any way, and then have a voting process, which would be kind of 2-step, where directors will be voting on a secret ballot, where you will be voting for 1, and then those get all collected. The winner is the first winner is selected and then kept private. You're then given a second ballot to then submit again. Then the people who win, the director elect that wins on the first ballot and the second ballot are then pronounced by me. The total results are not shared to keep that confidentiality on the total numbers for our nominees. That's kind of the format that I'm pitching. This should take, again, about an hour if we give the nominees 5 minutes to pitch themselves, about 30 minutes or so for Q&A, and then like a 3-minute each with concluding statements.
You're at an hour already, just with the opening statements and then the conversation.
So an hour and a half, that's why we kind of booked an hour and a half.
I had 2 questions, so, you say a 30-minute Q&A is like that's the good window, it seems, that sounds a little bit long for 7 candidates.
So if we had even just like 2 questions, each candidate had 2 minutes tops to answer. And then giving them kind of going one by one, that would give the most fair advantage, because we need to understand the same way that if they were to be running a campaign, given the opportunity to speak to students. This is sort of like running an expedited process. We need to understand what they bring to the table and what makes them special.
Two things. One, is it possible that the questions for the Q&A could be prepared beforehand? That either, for example, we can fill out a Google form, like it submitted to you, you
Yep.
can decide, something like that. And also with the voting system, you vote the first time, let's say Joe Smith wins and everybody, that doesn't get shared and everybody votes the same time. But if vote Joe Smith wins, I don't get it, it's different the second election.
Again, by having that double layer, not knowing who wins the first time, I mean, you will kind of understand who wins, but it's more for the.
But wouldn't you vote the same?
No, it's more for the nominees, it's more for the nominees. You don't wanna declare the round one, like that's kind of not great. Or,
I just quite frankly don't understand. Yeah, what, can you walk it through again? It's,
okay,
you wanna do 2 rounds of voting.
Mhm.
You don't wanna tell us who wins the first round,
I mean, you'll see it on your ballot.
so the ballot changes.
The ballot will change,
Okay, I'm good.
First person to be struck on the inside bar.
yes.
The only
Yeah. Sorry, I thought that was kind of implicit, but like, I apologize.
The only thing I think, is like, if we vote the first round and you vote for someone, but they don't win, but then you're just gonna vote for them again in the second round, so you're only voting for one person, instead of like, having the chance to vote for 2 people,
Well,
you know?
no, but you will have a chance to vote for a second, for that same person.
But if you-
they don't.
But like, you're only voting for one person technically, they just didn't win the first round, so you're voting for them again in the second round,
Okay.
instead of like having a chance to vote for 2 people. You know? Like, why,
Like
why,
ranked choice, want to do ranked choice, is that?
Could we possibly do it in a way that we have the 2 ballots in front of us, we put the 2 different names on each of the ballot,
Yeah.
and then
Is that something that we can?
better, because we're all a little bit, we don't wanna be voting for the same person twice. If that person doesn't win,
But somebody's first choice could be somebody's second choice, like, this is why elections are so difficult. Generally.
Is there a first choice and second choice, or is it two equal?
I feel like either way,
Because if
like,
you
if
vote
you're
for
voting for 2 people, if you're voting for 2 people, you're gonna put the 2 people's names down anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think
No,
that,
this, like, you shouldn't be able to put, like.
So-
That's just making the whole election system.
Oh my God.
Sorry, just for the actual election that we got elected to. Why don't we just use that system? Because you voted, you ranked your candidates, so why don't we just do a ranked system, just do it the same way?
Yeah.
Okay.
It simplifies everything.
Do we have the capability to run a rank system?
We can do a ranked ballot.
Okay, so. Do a rank ballot and then declare winner and then second winner.
Sounds good.
Cool, that works. Any other questions? Sorry, I thought that kind of makes sense, but I guess it doesn't.
So going back to my first point, just to
Mm.
clarify and stamp it, should we create like a Google form or something where we just submit questions?
Yes.
One side.
No, I will not be deciding unilaterally. How would directors want to like pool those questions to the?
Like one question each, or is that too much?
That's gonna be like, again, don't forget that we're gonna be giving
Yeah.
them 2 minutes to each to answer a question. So like, I think we should probably come up as a group with like 2 or 3 questions max.
Like, are they all answering the same 2 questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And the thing is that we're gonna be, I'm gonna be asking the questions so that they don't have time to prepare, because that defeats the whole point.
Yeah.
Same as an interview. Go ahead.
can we just figure out 2 questions now?
Some of them might be here and we're just lecturing.
No.
So what, like, we kind of have the ability to kind of submit questions and do it all
Yeah,
offline. Like,
Okay.
I get the feeling that a lot of the questions we submit are gonna be very similar.
yes.
So why don't we kind of just compile a document and then take a look through it?
Director Alice?
could we possibly all send our questions to you, and then you send out the most popular questions and we vote on them?
Let's stick up one.
Something similar?
Google Forms, Director Muller, what's your?
Just saying, you could come up with 2 questions and send them, we could send them to the directors so that they can, or the director candidates, so that they can think about their answers in advance. Depends, do you want like
Having an interview style.
how
We're gonna do
how
that.
useful is that though? Like,
True, fair, we could do that too.
To kind of add on to that point, I think we want them to prepare their answers as best as possible.
Fair enough.
That's the best.
That's
true.
It replicates a skill that hopefully they're gonna utilize. their own.
Yeah.
True. Okay, so actually, since we're already here, do we want to come up with the 2 questions so that we don't have to do that later?
Sure.
What's that? What are some of the first questions? What's the first question that you'd like to ask, a candidate?
What previous experience,
Director Russo?
I was just thinking like time management, like what are the things you have going on, will you be able to attend meetings?
Very fair and very relevant.
Because I'm just thinking like, what are they gonna include in their intro is probably gonna be like.
Yes.
The experience with it and what they would bring to the board.
Yep.
So then we ask the questions that like they would not put in there.
Time management and what other things you have running with you.
Yeah, equipment, management.
Okay, Director Phillips.
I don't want to say asking for commitments, but I do like what asking for time management.
Yes.
They do 2 minutes of time better, because someone could have time commitments, but they have like some time management skills, and that's fine.
Absolutely.
So I think maybe that's, or is that,
Can you manage this commitment? This,
what do you do to manage your?
very fair question.
What relevant experience have you done in the past that can benefit the board?
That's a very complex question, but not,
Yeah, that might already be mentioned.
yeah,
Especially if they have 5 minutes, so I feel like.
we'll go by order, please. Director Corey.
I also kind of would hesitate a bit on experience, just because experience isn't necessarily a qualifier to be on this board. And
Yes.
so kind of, I get the point of recognizing their experience and how they could adapt to the board, but I would be a little cautious around quoting their experience.
Director Baldwin.
Maybe like what motivated you to be on the board and why you would, and like what you changed specifically.
Okay.
You know, the goals, bring to the board.
Okay, so let's build the first question, which I think the consensus is around time management, so something along the lines of. I'll send out a final version to directors at some point, but something along the lines of what ability do you have, or how have you demonstrated your ability to manage multiple commitments all at the same time, and what plan do you have to be able to
Like how you
handle the
conflict of interest.
Yeah.
it's conflicts of time on the board. Is that kind of reasonable with directors? So that's the first one. And then the second question, which I kind of been seeing consensus, is about what do you hope to bring to the board? And or did we talk about skill or what goals do you have? What would you like to see?
I'm just thinking like, are you gonna send out the document to the, like, the nominees as well?
Yes.
Like, what's the actual final question?
Once we have a final set of questions, then we'll.
So, sorry,
Sorry.
so then when you like, say, like, prepare a 5-minute introduction or something, then you can include like example, your experience, what skills you have, like, you know, so then like, so they kind of know what to talk about with that, if you wanted to do that.
So, I mean, Director Ma, correct me if I'm wrong, but what if instead of doing that Q&A, they just have a longer introduction answering these questions?
I mean, it doesn't matter to me, it's up to you all. I was just gonna say that on Wednesday, the plan was to email all the candidates, let them know when the meeting was scheduled for, and then provide them with any information the board wanted them to know ahead of time, so.
So I will draft an email tonight and then send it to all directors. Please have it to me by end of day tomorrow so that I can send it to our governance coordinator Wednesday morning.
That's an interesting point about sort of setting your time to speak, setting a Q&A, like 7 minutes. And saying, in your 7 minutes, please answer these 2 questions, make it basically like a minute each answer.
And then have a final so concluding statements, 5 minutes each again. 3 minutes? 3 minutes, 3 minutes concluding.
10 minutes each.
Yeah,
Like 10 minutes, so.
okay, perfect. Director Corey, did you have anything?
No, I was just saying I would say 2 minutes, but that's already been decided.
Okay, we're okay with the format as decided. I'm gonna send out a Google Docs. Actually, can we send a Google Docs or how do we do that on Microsoft Teams?
There's one
Where?
I think you could document make the PDF.
Well, how can we send something that they could all,
So I mean, there's a few different ways you can send out a Word doc. I mean, if you really want, if people really prefer a Google Doc, I mean, it's up to you.
Google Doc or a Word doc, which,
Well, I think Teams usually.
Yeah, just put it on Teams.
okay, I'll share a Word doc and then, with a basic framework, and then we'll just edit each other's stuff. And then, have it to our governance coordinator end of day tomorrow. Cool.
Nice.
That concludes that part of the discussion. My computer timed out. We will now move into announcements. Does any director have any announcements? Okay. As I see none, we can now move into action item summary. I will send out a Google Doc or a Microsoft document to share on Teams where you'll be able to edit the questions. Please do so. Going forward, again, please answer your emails in a timely fashion. We will meet 1 week from today at 7 o'clock to run the election. Any other action items? Doc? Nope. Cool. We will now move into adjournment. Can I have a motion on the table? Director Corey and Director Ellis will now move into voting. Any questions, comments, and concerns? As I see none, we'll move into voting. Any opposition? Extension? All those in favor? Motion passes with unanimous consent, 0 to 8. Thank you so much for attending our board meeting. We will go.